Mark had always been a patient man. He lived alone in a small apartment in an old building in the city. Everything was quiet, until Mrs. Fisher moved in next door. At first, it was subtle, soft whispers that seemed to come through the walls. Mark thought nothing of it, just the building settling. But soon, the voices grew more distinct, and that's when the unease set in. There were two voices. One was sweet, soft, and soothing, like a lullaby. The other was dark, guttural, and distorted. It was almost impossible to ignore now. Every night, the whispers would grow louder. One evening, Mark decided to confront Mrs. Fisher. When she answered the door, her pale face and hollow eyes made his skin crawl. She smiled, but it was far too wide. "Everything all right, Mrs. Fisher?" he asked. "Yes, dear," she replied sweetly. "Old houses tend to speak, you know. It's nothing to worry about." Her words barely made him feel better. That night, the whispers were clearer, more urgent. "Mark, come closer." The voice sounded like his mother's, warm and familiar. It froze him in place. But then it changed. The voice warped, becoming distorted, as if struggling to speak. "Mark, come closer." Mark's heart pounded. The whispers were no longer distant. They were right there, close enough to touch. He bolted out of bed, heart racing, and rushed to Mrs. Fisher's door, but when he knocked, she didn't answer. Instead, creaked open on its own, and Mark stepped inside. The apartment was unnaturally cold, and the air felt thick, suffocating. As he stepped into the dark hallway, he could hear the whispers echoing around him, louder now. "Mark, come to me." He spun around, eyes wide with panic. The door slammed shut behind him, trapping him inside. Then, from the shadows, he saw her, Mrs. Fisher, her face pale and stretched, her smile far too wide, eyes completely black. She stepped forward, and the whispers came from all around. "You should have stayed away," she hissed. The last thing Mark saw was her twisted grin before everything went dark. The next morning, his apartment door was found wide open, his belongings untouched, but Mark was gone. The neighbors still hear the whispers on quiet nights, as if Mark's name is still calling to them from the walls.